Welcome back to the Colin Thompson Show. I hope everyone is having an awesome day, had an awesome weekend, coming to you live July 18th with a awesome episode ahead. I'm going to try to be as brief as possible. We go about an hour with one of the premier hosts at Barstool Sports, Spittin Chiclets, the number one hockey podcast in the world, Admiral, and really Brian McGonigal, Barstool Sports. You'll hear me make fun of him in the beginning. Quick story behind that is he's at a Boston game. They're interviewing one of the players from the Bruins in the playoffs, and he goes, Brian McGonigal, Barstool Sports, with a real hard Boston accent. RA's become a friend. He's a great guy, extremely knowledgeable about hockey. Crazy story about coming from a janitor to literally the premier host of a hockey podcast, the number one show in the world. And they do an unbelievable job, from being philanthropic to having awesome news and stories and great hosts. And that's my number one podcast I listen to. A buddy of mine, Steve, shout out to Steve Fingleton, really got me into it. I'm a big hockey fan. It's kind of my escape from football. And, huge Flyers fan, really disappointed how they did things this offseason. It's a shame. I've been dying, on the vine as a Flyers fan. I've been trying to support them. I've been trying to, put my neck out for them. I've been trying to defend what they're doing. I thought last season they made some nice moves, brought some good veterans in. They completed the team off. They had depth. They were rolling early in the season. You have three centers get hurt, three starting, top three line centers get hurt in hockey, you're done. It's not going to happen. The season's over. Well, this year he trade away Claude Giroux. He does not come back in free agency. There's no real direction in free agency. They get rid of Oscar Lindblom, who beat cancer and is a player that was actually a really good player before the cancer and all the treatments, and then was trending in the right direction, kind of a part of the quote-unquote farm system in Philly, and they cut him, they trade him away, and then when they cut him, they buy him out of his contract, and they make a donation to cancer. I don't know. It just seemed a little, I'm happy for, Oscar, that he's beaten cancer, and he's an unbelievable person from what I hear, all accounts. But to get rid of a guy like that in the Flyers organization, that's a character guy, that's a player that's trending in the right direction, who's young, who's fast, skilled, that was really tough for me to see Oscar go, as well as a lot of other players that they didn't resign or go after. Everybody wants Johnny Hockey and Johnny Gaudreau, and we're going to get into that on the podcast with RA. But I think the one thing that people need to keep in mind, he's 29 years old. Yes, he's from the Philly area, but 29 years old, you're going to sign someone like that to an 8-year deal. He's not a center. I've talked about it with Jason Martinez on here before, so we don't need to get into it too deep with the podcast. You guys are going to hear all that with RA. Just disappointed Flyer fan here, but not disappointed with what's going on with our friends over at Fudge Kitchen. FudgeKitchens.com. They ship fudge. They ship all of their sweet treats across the country. You know the drill by now. Go to the website, FudgeKitchens.com. Just pop on the website. Really easy to use. Really simple. Nothing too high tech. Go on there. You select your fudge. You can add all the flavors that you want. I believe you can do some mixing and matching too. They just have an awesome approach to how they handle their business, which is the fudge making business. Everything is spotless behind the scenes there. I've been able to walk through the business. Everything's spotless. The white sneakers, the hats, the shirts, everything's spotless. They're just how they go about their business. The kettle pots they use, the way they, scrub the pots a certain way, the way they don't scrub their pots a certain way. It's just a really unique process. They've been doing for 50 years over there at the original Fudge Kitchen. So treat your family, right? The summer's in full swing. We're kind of the middle part of the year there, enjoy it. But remember, when you're on your way home from the shore, grab some fudge and sweet treats. If not, send that Jersey Shore saltwater taffy, the fudge vibe, to some of your friends across the country, shipping fudge and sweet treats, FudgeKitchens.com. I said it last week, and I talked about it last week on the show, how important it is as we get to training camp here with the sleep and all these different things that come about, the anxiety of leaving home. A lot of players have to go through this. I myself do, you just moved to a new house and you build in and then you move in, all of a sudden you got to up and leave, and the struggles with that and all those different things. And I struggle with sleep, just point blank period. A lot of athletes do, a lot of people do in general. We're just have a job that's physical on TV. We're no different than a lot of other people that struggle with sleep or, having a routine and all the things about that. But at the end of the day, Som Sleep, and again, they're one of our sponsors. Go on their website, get Som Sleep, use promo code Colin. It's great and all that. But I'm so lucky that our sponsors are like things that I really care about, have passion about. Get Some Sleep has changed my NFL career. Point blank period. It has helped me calm down. The magnesium and the natural things in the drink have helped me calm down more at night, wind down more. I also, as a player, get home from work. You need a little 20, 30-minute nap. It's been a long day or it's an off day and you take a longer nap than you want to, right? On the weekends, we've all done that. And then it screws up, your kind of sleep pattern. Som has helped me get back on track with that. So you take a nap maybe till 5 or 6 and you're, oh man, that was way too late. I can't go to bed at 10 o'clock now. Well, take a Som sleep at 9, 9:30, boom. Helps you fall asleep gradually. Wake up in the morning, you're not groggy. So literally go and get some sleep. Use promo code Colin. Any of our promo codes here at Not For Long Media. All of our podcasts have the sponsorship with Get Some Sleep. So check them out. Support your podcast by using the promo code Get Some Sleep. Use promo code Colin. SeatGeek, our friends, you're going to a game this year. You can't beat it. $20 off tickets that are over $50. You buy 2 tickets. Nowadays it's going to be over $50. Bring that price back down. Pump in that promo code Colin Thompson, COLINTHOMPSON, $20 off your tickets over $50 with SeatGeek. Appreciate all our sponsors. We're very fortunate to have you guys in our corner. Thank you guys so much for your belief in Not For Long Media. Thank you to our fans, our friends, everyone who's dialed in. It's really cool. I appreciate everyone's support, their feedback, the text when I spell things wrong, all those good stuff. I really appreciate you guys really helping me row this thing in the right direction. We have an unbelievable team here at Not For Long Media. Great group of just young people that are motivated, trying to make this thing work. A team of about 15 or so, 20 or so people from host. I guess we have breaking news on here, and we're really excited to have a couple additions to our Not For Long Media family. It's no secret that I've been wanting to grow this thing. It started off as Not For Long Podcast in 2017 when I got cut from the New York Giants. Then a couple of years ago, it went from Not For Long Media. Then I rebranded my personal one to Colin Thompson Show. Then I started getting approached by people. Hey, listen, I want to start a podcast. Great. Breaking Bats joins us. Brian O'Grady says, let's do it. Boom, we're rolling. Brian's in Japan, one of the top baseball podcasts in the country. How cool is that? And we have Brian O'Grady doing that from literally Japan, international podcast. So such a cool job. He's with Justin Ayers, which is awesome. And Justin's a beast. And Jack and Justin, like I talked about last week on the pod, they'll be coming to training camp to cover what we're doing down there in Carolina. So then Breaking Bats happens. And then I reach out, to a few different people, and there's more podcasts to come. I was just about to break some news that I'm not ready for yet, which is a football podcast that's coming soon. But then I have 2 friends of mine that I got to know that are someone I looked up to in the business, 2 gentlemen, and Harry Mays and Jason Martinez, 2 voices that you guys have heard on this show. And I reach out to them and I say, hey guys, you have a great podcast. Do you want to come to Not For Long Media? They said, yep, let's do it. Let's make it work. So we now have breaking news in Not For Long Media. Geez, with Harry Mays and Jason Martinez. Make sure you guys follow it on Twitter. We're going to be really big with Twitter base. 2 of the top all-time hosts in Philadelphia radio sports talk history, which is a huge lineage and history of amazing hosts in that city. Harry Mays and Jason Martinez are joining us. Jason Martinez is the voice of the Flyers when it comes to radio, intermission, pregame show, postgame show. Jason Martinez does that in Philadelphia radio. He also is the host of Flyers Daily, one of the top hockey podcasts in literally the country. Spittin Chiclets and Missing Curfew and all these guys, they cover the whole league. Jason just talks to Flyers, and he's one of the top 5, top 3. He's been up top number 1 at one point in time. I know he was a podcast in the country. So Jason brings that expertise. Harry Mays, swinging and ding it. 97.5 The Fanatic for 13 years. Just a legend. Work with guys like Tony Bruno and Sirius XM Radio. Harry's worked with a lot of different people. Mike Missinelli, Cataldi, just a legend in the biz. And, someone I looked up to. He was our color commentary on the sideline for Temple football when I was doing it, when I was playing. And then he got hurt and I jumped in his role when I got cut from the NFL. NFL stands for Not For Long. And Harry and I have been tight, since I've been friends with Jason and Harry. And now for them to work together, we're colleagues. Somebody I looked up to work with Not For Long Media is tremendous. So, geez, breaking news is joining us here at Not For Long Media. Lots of banter and fun at Not For Long. More breaking news here at Not For Long Media. Our friends Bourbon with Friends, a huge podcast with a huge following. Check them out, guys. Bourbon with Friends, all social media. Check out their website. They are killing it. Connor and Paul, absolute studs. It's just 2 guys kind of sitting at the bar, talking about different bourbons they like or dislike or what's better than others. All these awesome guests like Ed Belfour, Terry Bradshaw, just awesome, awesome stuff out of our friends with Bourbon with Friends. We can't wait to really show them off to you guys because they're just a killer podcast, just like all our podcasts here at Not For Long Media, but they're our latest and new one. So breaking news at Not For Long Media, our friends with Bourbon with Friends have joined us. So really excited to have you guys. We have 2 more podcasts coming out. I can't reveal that, but we're going to be a total of 6 by the fall, which is unbelievable and something I'm really looking forward to doing. So breaking news, OGs, and Bourbon with Friends, 2 awesome podcasts have joined our media company to align with Breaking Bats and then my show, The Colin Thompson Show, which you listen to right now. So thank you guys so much for your support. So the bar of the week is picking up steam. I appreciate everybody listening and their thoughts. Listen, rate bars, please. If they rate high enough, we're going to go. We'll do the review right from it. So would love, absolutely would love for you guys to send me your ratings on bars. Again, TVs, ambiance, cold drinks, good beer. And the last and final one that is slipping my mind is the service. So, there's a lot to be, discussed. People are saying you should be rating other things or that things. I try to find something, that is equal for every bar because some bars don't have food, right? Some bars, may have a small bar, but a great restaurant, right? Restaurant bars, they're all in, in the same, they're all in the same category. So again, go to a bar, try it. Tell me about your favorite bar. I would love to know more about it. So, okay. The bar of the week this week is the Moosehead Grill in Charlotte, North Carolina. It's in this little town called Montford down there. It's an awesome little place just south of the city, 5-10 minutes. The Moosehead Grill is our bar of the week here at Not For Long Media at the Colin Thompson Show. I absolutely love it. Shout out to all my friends at Charlotte who pushed this in that direction. It's a great place to go and have a beer and some wings. It's some of the best wings, if not the best wings in Charlotte. So when it comes to TVs, thinking out loud, I think I'm going to give it. I got to go back to the pictures here. I thought I was ready to go today, guys. I'm going to restart the segment because, I want to get this right here because I take this very seriously. But, okay, let's see. Let's take a picture here. Let's check out maybe the bar of the week. What are we thinking? TVs wise. Okay. The bar this week at the Colin Thompson Show is none. We're going to restart that over too. This is great for our live and our viewing audience here as I'm screwing this up, but I want to be dialed in. I want to be dialed in for you guys. I want to make sure we're doing the right thing. All right. So the bar of the week here at the Colin Thompson Show is the Moosehead Grill in Charlotte, North Carolina, Montford. Love the area. Awesome bars in there. There's a lot of bars that could be up for the bar of the week. And who knows, we have 52 weeks to do this thing and we're going to continue into the distance. So the bar of the week, Moosehead Grill, an awesome place. TVs, they're really good TVs. They're not great TVs. You're going there for the ambiance to watch a game. I think I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5. The TVs are solid. They're not the best setup ever, but they're really good TVs. Great place to watch a game. So I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5. When it comes to cold beer and cold drinks and good drinks, to me, they are our first 5 out of 5 on the cold beer scale. It does not get much better than Moosehead Grill when it comes to cold beer. Ice freaking cold. So shout out to Moosehead Grill for doing that. The servers, the bartenders, fantastic. I may even go all the way to a 5 out of 5. Unbelievable. The type of people that may know your name. You're going to walk in, they're going to say hi to you. The servers are bustling around. You don't just have one server per table. They're humping. They're running everywhere. The effort is through the roof. It's pretty cool. They run past the bar and they yell the bar order out like Bud Light, Miller Light, whatever the drink, man, vodka soda, and they make the drink boom, boom, boom for the people. There's no writing things down. They just rip it and send it over. So I'm going to go 5 out of 5 on that. And the overall ambiance and the food, I'm going to go 5 out of 5. I'm going to go 5 out of 5. It's great bar food and the wings are unbelievable. And the ambiance is fantastic. It's a former Pizza Hut turned bar. So it's got all the Christmas lights up. It's got just a cool, quaint atmosphere. It's probably got, I don't know, 2 dozen bar stools around the bar, maybe a little less than that, maybe a dozen. It's got seating like the old Pizza Hut has, kind of the funky shape. It has a little rooftop deck on it that probably seats another 20 people. So just because of the ambiance, the place is cool and the food is good, I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5. Great ambiance. The service is fantastic. The bartenders are fantastic. I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5 on that. I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5 on the cold beer. Tremendous cold beer there. And then I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5 on the TV. So it's a pretty good score. 18 for Moosehead Grill in Charlotte, North Carolina. That's our bar of the week this week. So, yep. That for me, guys, that's it. I'm going to send over to RA. We're getting wrapped up here. We're getting ready for NFL training camp. It's 1 week away, really, from when this episode will drop. We report next Tuesday, I believe. Next Tuesday, sorry, guys, I'm getting my calendar right. Report to camp on the 26th. So we're going to be rocking and rolling with the run test on the 26th, and then we're off to the races all the way up until a preseason game with Washington on the 13th. And then I believe a preseason game with the New England Patriots on the 19th or 20th. I don't have them, in my head yet. I take it one day at a time in camp, and then we finish up with Buffalo at home as we finish up training camp. So it is tiresome. It is tough, but it flies by, and it's an unbelievable time you'll never forget with your team. It's a really great way to get close. We're fortunate enough to go away to Spartanburg, South Carolina, with the team and get away from kind of life and, reality and kind of hunker down and really get the focus. So excited to get to work with the Panthers and another great year in Carolina. We always made a bunch of moves. Our team is extremely underrated, and I absolutely love that. I know our team does too. We don't really care about that stuff. You can't control it, so why would we really care? You just can't worry about it. I digress. I love the hockey, as you guys know. There's no better guest than RA, Rear Admiral Brian McGonigal from Spittin Chiclets and Barstool Sports. Thank you, Brian, for joining us. I'm looking forward to seeing you in Boston, and you show me a good steakhouse in Boston when we practice against New England. And again, big thanks to Brian for coming back on the show again. I hope you guys enjoy it. Talked a lot of NHL, a lot of free agency, a lot of good stories about Wayne Gretzky and just the heyday of hockey back in the day that he remembers, and then the current day. So a lot of really good stuff. I hope you guys enjoy the podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate your support. And thank you to our sponsors, the original Fudge Kitchen, fudgekitchens.com, Som Sleep. Check them out. Guys, I'm telling you, it's life-changing. Som Sleep, promo code Colin, and then Geek, promo code Colin Thompson. Enjoy the RA Brian McGonigal Barstool Sports podcast. Well, here he is, folks. Brian McGonigal, Barstool Sports. How we doing there, RA?
We're doing government names, huh, Colin? I'm going to have to send someone your way to take care of that. What's up, buddy? Thanks for having me on, man. It's always a pleasure.
It is a pleasure, man. This is our tradition here, usually around this time in the summer, 2 years in a row now. So I guess we can make it a tradition to have you on. We go back and forth, via DMs on Twitter every once in a while, and I appreciate you getting back. And I'll say this, man, and I know you're along for the ride, and you're loving this ride. You're a guy that seems like lives in the moment and has a ball and really appreciates what you got going, because you got the best show on the road, man. Like, it's unbelievable. Your last episode with Kevin Weeks was just Kevin's big time. And you guys are great. You guys have great guests. I'm just a huge fan of the show, man. Love what you're doing.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that immensely. And Kevin, he's a great guy. He's been on the show a bunch. He makes guys like that make it easy when they come on. It's like, all right, not that you don't prepare, but it's, there's a familiarity there, a comfort level there. And, it's real easy when Weeksy comes on. He's a great guy too.
Yeah, he's an absolute stud. I got to, touch on something. You're known for a lot of things in this world, but the one thing you're really known for is how you clean hats. Okay. It is a revelation. I've DM'd you for it. I've done it. It's fantastic. Can you just basic overview for our fans at home? Because a lot of us, we rock the dad hat. Yep. You have a lot of them. You and I, your collection's huge. I'm working on your collection. Regretfully to my wife. She's not the happiest about it now. She supports it, but how do you do it? How do you clean your hats? All right.
So it's so simple, and I kind of stumbled into it. You go into the shower, taking a regular shower, you wear the hat in the shower, and you just wash it as if you were shampooing your head. Like I don't even have any hair left anymore, so I just put. By the way, I don't do my Heisenberg hat that way. Just a regular dad hats. By the way, I don't know why they call those dad hats. Anyways, you just wear the hat in the shower, and you scrub soap on it as if it's your scalp. You take it off. You wash soap on the inside, and then just get all the soap off, hang dry it, and it's as good as new. It's really that simple. You just wear it in, scrub it, like I said, as if it's your hair. Take it off, clean the inside, hang dry it, and The success rate is incredible. And I know people say, oh, no, the dishwasher, or what's the other one people do? Or you hand them the same. Dude, the dishwasher is the worst places to put a hat, especially old ones, because you got these high-powered jet streams that they're made to take grease off of plates, not to clean your hats, and you can ruin an old hat that way. I know they have those other things. There's a little contraption you put your hat in. You can't beat going in the shower because it's gentle. It cleans it perfect, and I get tweets all the time that like, oh my God, this thing is genius. It's too bad I couldn't patent it because it's a genius idea, but there's no money to be made, unfortunately. You know,
Whit comes up with the pink Whitney and probably makes a mill. You come up with the scrub hat. Maybe you need to deal with like Dove soap or something.
I get retweets. You know, yeah. What do you get?
That blog on Chiclets has got to be one of the top viewed blogs for you. It's constantly getting hit up.
You know, it's funny. I do have it as my pinned tweet, and every it seems like a couple times a month I'll get a random before and after picture, or like even like Coop on Tampa Bay, John Cooper, coach. He hit me up recently. His young kid wanted to wash the hat. He's like, hey, how do I wash the hat? I said, oh, just check the blog out. So it's certainly become a thing I'm known for. But
just your first name basis with John Cooper, one of the best coaches in the NHL right now, will be a Hall of Famer, and you're just helping his son clean his hat.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I know, this job has kind of brought me down some funny avenues and some strange avenues where, I kind of scroll through my phone once in a while and you look at some of the people you kind of become pals with or contacts with, and it's been an adventure, man. It's certainly been a fun ride. It's nothing close to over,
I know, man. I know. You guys. I don't even have to prep, for RA, because I know it's like I talk to you guys every week. I listen every week. It's helping. We talked about this last time. It's helped me get through different things. It's helped me check out a little bit and go. I'm a Mr. Football, and I got to do all this football stuff, and then I just pop on hockey. It's been my getaway. That actually have leaned toward Premier League too. It's been kind of. I never was a soccer fan, but I've got into it through COVID. And now I'm, going to London next year to check that out too. I got to hit some pubs and have a good time. So
yeah, it's amazing the amount of Americans the last, even 5-10 years who I've seen like dive into soccer. I mean, I like the game. I'd never get into the English Premier League or any of that. I'm somewhat familiar with it. I love when the World Cup rolls around. I love the international competition because soccer is not a game I grew up with. But my generation in Boston, soccer was non-existent. Like it's just. It was the Pele back in the 70s played that, whatever that league was, the NASL, I think it was. And then it was nothing. And then 20 years later, it kind of became a sport basically around here. So I didn't even grow up with soccer, but it's a game I really appreciate. It's I know people like, oh, it's kick it. Like usually hockey players and football players, usually the ones that dump on soccer, but they call it a beautiful game for a reason. It really is an awesome game to watch.
Once you get into it and learn how to watch the game, I think that's the most important thing I tell people is like, you just got to pick a team. Say, this is my team. I'm rolling with it. If you're a gambling man, put a little, put $20 on the game every week for them to win, and just you'll get into it. That's what I suggest to people. But whether you don't have to gamble on it or not, but just pick a team and roll with it. There's a lot going on. We got to link up too. I forgot to tell you, and this is on air, but we come to Boston for a preseason game. So I'll talk to you about that out there. But
absolutely,
yeah, we'll talk about that. But I digress.
Around here.
Yeah, there's a lot going on here, but whatever. Long story short, a lot going on. Absolutely love what you're doing. There's so much to tackle. Before we get into it, touch on what's going on like with you guys moving forward. I know you guys have events coming up here at Chiclets.
Yeah, season obviously kind of winding down with free agency, the draft. Those are kind of the last two major events of the season. But we are holding another Chiclets Cup next week. I'm not sure when this show is dropping, but actually a week from today, the 21st in Buffalo. It's our third Chiclets Cup. Yeah, we had the first one in Detroit, was more or less a dry run, which was highly successful. Then we had the second one in Vegas that coincided with the All-Star game, and this is the third one in Buffalo, which is city. Our goal is to get to every NHL city in the course of Chiclets, and we hadn't been to Buffalo yet. Perfect time. We're like, all right, let's go up to Buffalo, have the Chiclets Cup up there in the middle of the summer. So we're going to be doing that in a week, and that'll pretty much wrap up our 21-22 calendar for Chiclets, and then August we pretty much take the month off. I think we're still going to put in an episode each week. It'll just be an interview though. It won't be like a traditional full episode when I was talking. We'll just put an interview out, and then September fire it back up again. I know we're going to kick off the season. I don't know if we announced that yet. We're all going to be going to a major city to kick off. I can't really spoil because it kind of coincides with some other Barstool related stuff.
Yeah,
but it's a major American city we haven't been to in a while, and we're very excited to return. I'll leave it at that.
How cool is that though, man? Like for you, like you're right. You're a janitor, right? We talked about this before.
Yeah.
Like you like did it, you grinded. You're from a firefighter family, like Boston blue collar, lit from Charlestown, moved back to Charlestown, like, and then you go from cleaning floors literally to now you're a huge personality with probably the biggest media company and most interesting media company in the country, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's been a ride, and like the custodian gig, and I had a lot of shit gigs before that, man. I know what it's like to have a job that like makes you want to jump out the window. I've had a few of them, and I went to college, and I graduated in '97 and tried to get in media. There was no jobs in newspaper writing; they were all drying up, and yeah, I just kind of kept my finger in that blog pile with Barstool, and trying to get paid as a writer, and it turned out to be my big mouth that ended up getting me my bag, so to speak. So yeah, I'm grateful. I mean, it's sometimes you got to remind yourself or pinch yourself and say, hey, don't how lucky you have it. But I have those experiences to go back. To be working in a school making terrible dough and having a bad boss and just being miserable all the time, and to going from that to this, yeah, it's a whirlwind, and I'm very grateful for it. And I do pinch myself frequently to remind myself how lucky I am.
You mentioned North Adams State. You mentioned college. I think some of the coolest things are like, all right, you go to a small school, but there's like coaches in the NHL that you rubbed elbows with. Can you go into some of that stuff? Because I think that's a really cool part of your journey and your story.
Derek Lalonde, man. I was at, like I said, North Adams. I was there for 93 to 97, 4.5 years I was there. And I think it was maybe my junior year, I was doing work study with the hockey team. I actually got fired from my other work study job. I might have been fooling around my hours a little bit. So it was a blessing in disguise because they sent me to the hockey team to work. And we got an assistant coach, Derek Lalonde. He had just graduated SUNY Cortland, played hockey there, and he was getting his master's degree. He was a graduate assistant. He was younger than me, actually. And he was a quiet guy. It was his first job, and kind of was keeping his mouth shut, just learning the job. And we got to know each other a little bit, and then I went back to visit a couple times as alumni, and then he ended up moving on to another, whatever the next job was, and we lost touch, like as happens with college guys. And then about 5 years ago, a mutual friend of ours, my buddy Evie, reached out and said, "Hey, did you know Derek's the assistant in Tampa?" I was like, "Get the hell out of here!" Really, you just hadn't talked to him in ages, and so he got us back in touch a few years ago, and then I texted him, and we were kind of, "Oh my God, that's awesome. He's doing so good, blah, blah, blah." So then when they won the first cup, the Bubble Cup, I happened to be in Tampa when they were doing some of the celebrations. And he's like, "Oh, you're in town?" Like, he goes, "Why didn't you bother me?" Because, I don't want to be like that pain in the ass, like mooching for a cup party with my reputation. So he said, "Oh, are you crazy?" He goes, so they invited me to, I think it was the video guys day with the cup. Of course, it was COVID, so everything had to be kind of low key because, someone took a video of them passing the cup around. That's when the world was still being crazy about COVID and ratting on people on Twitter and shit. So I went to the party at Fort Greene Fields in downtown Tampa. It was actually the last night this bar was ever open. They kept it open specifically for the cup party. And that's actually the night I met Coop, because I hadn't seen Derek in almost 20 years. And he introduced me to Coop. And me and, some people you just click with or hit it off with. And so I met Coop that night, and we kind of clicked that night, and, kind of been talking and pals ever since. So yeah, me and Derek, we're kind of proud about that fact. Like, we're both at this rinky-dink Division III North Adams State, and they didn't even have a hockey team in 2 or 3 years after he left. And, he's now coach of the Detroit Red Wings, and, Chiclets has had the success it's had. So, for state schools, sometimes they get a bad rap. And, hey, I went there because I'm, like I said, I'm a blue-collar background. I couldn't afford to go to too many other schools unless I want to get, what do you call it, take loans up the wazoo, which I wasn't about to do. And it prepared me for this life. There was no like roadmap for it, but if I didn't go to North Adams, this would have never happened.
You got to go. You got to take a shot. You got to, just do what you think's best at the time. And I think that, like, a message for a lot of kids, because I work with a lot of kids and mentor a lot of kids, especially like young football players. They're like, I got to go to the shiny toy school, or I need a scholarship to go to this place. There's a million ways to skin the cat, man.
Yeah.
And now you get to, like, the cool part is, like, you meet Coop, right? John Cooper, he's the head coach, Tampa Bay Lightning, for those that are listening at home that don't know what we're talking about. And he's a stud. He's a young coach. He's a really good coach. They could have three-peated, really, not that far from it. And I wanted them to. I'm a big, like, dynasty guy fan. And I know like, I want to people to say, oh, so, if everyone hates Alabama, we'll find a way to beat them. When the Patriots were
like the Michael Jordan thing, back in the day.
I love that. Like, I don't root against those teams. I used to, I guess, as a kid, because it was like kind of the thing to do. And the older I got, I was like, wait, so we're rooting against, right? And aside from LeBron, like politically and all that other stuff, like as a player, like we're rooting against him winning like 4 in a row. Like, why? Now,
Yeah.
other things coming up, but like Tampa, I was like, no, I want them to win another one. Like, I want them to four-peat, and they've made a lot of nice moves too. That,
Yeah.
that
The
for what,
GM is unreal. They're on a great track, and yeah, I was rooting for them. Now if I had not become friendly with the guy on the team, and that maybe I would not have been rooting against them. That was one of those whoever wins, I'm going to be happy for. But I was definitely
yeah.
hoping they got the three-peat. But then conversely, it's like Nate McKinnon, man, he's been at it 9 years, and Jared Bednar, who I've got to know a little bit too, and he's a great guy, and it's like, man, you're happy for these guys too. So that's the thing about the job. It's like you kind of root for individuals too. You kind of rooting for people more so than teams. Now I'm still a Bruins guy. I'm always a Bruins guy. I'm a diehard. But once they're out of it, man, yeah, it's about rooting for guys you like and guys you know, and you kind of go that way about it.
It's gonna be cool. You're gonna be able to text the head coach of the Detroit Red Wings to say, "What's up, man?" Because you guys used to
Yeah.
sneak him drinks because he was probably underage in college or whatever it was.
No, Derek didn't. He was a good boy. He didn't go out too much because there were only 2 bars up there, and it was the players. So he didn't want to be like around where the players were.
Yeah, yeah. Well, transition to growing the game here. Well,
Yeah.
let's before we go to growing the game. Well, you guys grow the game tremendously, obviously, and this is something that has grown the game and brought people together socially is Pink Whitney. Like we talked about it before, and it's an unbelievable thing what's going on. But like, what's that been like? Because I walk into every liquor store and it's right in the front. It's
Oh,
crazy.
it's wild. It was like I said, we were talking before the show. New Amsterdam was a presenting sponsor. Geez, I want to say 4 or 5 seasons ago, and it was the initial ad was like riff on how you like your New Amsterdam, and I'm probably more of a beer wine, well even maybe now a tequila mezcal guy. So I gave a kind of Don Draper answer with the twist or whatever, because vodka is probably not my first choice of the spirit. And Whitney gave his honest the answer. I like it, Paul Newman Pink Lemonade, which is how he takes it, and that all of a sudden everybody was making that mix. There was no name for it, and everyone was tweeting pictures back. And one guy I come up with the name, and I'm surprised he hasn't come for his pound of flesh yet, but who threw the name out, the hashtag Pink Whitney, and then that stuck, and then that got the ball rolling with, geez, let's do something more with it. And even when New Amsterdam came out with the initial drop of it, it was only supposed to be a seasonal thing or a one-time thing. And, the sales were so through the roof. We'd be crazy to stop selling this. I mean, people want it. Like, we can't make this a limited thing. And it became a permanent brand, as far as I know, permanent. And, it's caught across over all demographics. Like all 4 quarters. It's not like, I know hockey, it's thought of as, white guy sport, whatever. Pink Whitney is anything but like a white guy drink. I mean, you just saw the different demographics of look. People don't even know what hockey or Barstool or Chiclets is. They kind of wander into it in that way, and then you do have the people who find it through hockey. You see sororities building, bottles of pyramids and castles in their sorority houses, and then black neighborhoods. And I know there's a black guy who does like mixed drinks on TV, and he's a big Pink Whitney guy. So, like I said, it's kind of just found this reach into all different diverse. Customer bases, and it's just been a wild ride.
Yeah, man, it's good stuff. I love sipping on it. It's a great product, and I'm just so happy for you guys. It's a huge driver, obviously, business wise for you guys, and that just keeps things ticking and rolling and having a blast. Talk about growing the game and crazy people, and that's Biz Paul. Oh. I mean, that guy's an absolute animal, and I can only imagine, right? Because we only see probably 30% of them on the podcast. You guys know him. Whit always says he's constantly calling. Like he's just dialed in at what he does. Talk about TNT this year. Obviously, ESPN, like you always say, like when you go into a bar, you go into a CVS, you go into a whatever, anything that's got a little TV in the corner, like ESPN's on. Whether yeah, I just said a pharmacy has TVs, which they don't, and that's a fine on me. But anything that just that has a casual TV in it, whether it's a bar where you go to or a place that you're not even going to sit in, ESPN's on the TV. It's just natural. You just put it on, right? And there was many times this year where you walk in and hockey's on the TV, and I'm like, cool. And people are dialed into it. People are watching it just like they're casually watching an NBA game or an MLB game or whatever it may be. So it's been huge for the game. But more importantly to me is Turner and what they've done because of the product that basketball's had, right? And now they're trying to mimic that with hockey. What's the impact on that? It's been fantastic, I see.
It's been huge. I mean, I don't know the actual numbers, like the ratings wise. I know the TNT ratings were through the roof this year. And I would say yes, largely because of Biz. I mean, obviously the product, the game itself is the draw, but I don't know that TNT knew what they were getting with Biz because he just brought it. I mean, every week he was having people tune in. I mean, I'm going to watch him anyways. He's my friend and my coworker, but I think a lot of people like, oh, I'm going to turn it off of Biz by the second or third episode because you just didn't know what he was going to say or do, and because it's TNT and it's people forget it's cable, so there's no FCC guidelines. Like people, FCC guidelines only apply to over the air channels like ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox, anything that's free. Like so, TNT is it's you have to pay for it, so you're not beholden to FCC. So when Biz dropped the bullshit or whatever asshole, whatever word, and everyone's like, "Oh no," it's like, no, there's nothing to worry about. I mean, if his bosses might come and say, "Hey, you can't do that," but there's no like fines to worry about. You're not going to get any federal fines because it's a cable channel. And he just sort of pushed that envelope. You don't want to do it all the time. Like the show is one thing on Chiclets, but you don't want to be swearing every week on TV. But even if once in a while, it's a little excitement. It's a little like, oh my God, what's he going to do next? But Paul, I compare him, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Like, I don't know which is which in this scenario, but he's on our show, like he can be a total goofball out to lunch. And then it's like something switches when he's on TV and he's becomes this like X's and O's analytical down. He can break the game
Crazy.
down. You're like, oh my God. Cause I mean, when you play in the NHL, people like I know Whit always gives him shit because he's stunk. Listen, you have to be a tremendous hockey player to play in the NHL, whether you are just a fighter, I don't want to say just a fighter, whether fighting's your thing or whatever. So you have to understand the game at that level. So sometimes I watch Paul on TNT and I'm like, wow, man, he's really breaking this down outstanding here. And it's a different version of him than sometimes we get on Chiclets. But yeah, the popularity with the league this year in a more general sense has been unreal. I know the ratings were up on ESPN as well. I know people have their issues with ESPN for whatever other reasons that the channels change, whatever. Now, as far as the game presentation on ESPN, I thought there was some positives to it. Sean McDonough, I think, is a great game call, whatever sport he's doing. Ray Ferraro was great. Weeksy. I thought some of the other things, I don't want to, bash people individually. I thought there were some other things they really needed some improvement on. But TNT did a smash up job. I mean, Kenny Alberton play-by-play, tremendous. Edzo, Jonesy, and then in the booth, like not just, I'm sorry, in the studio, you got Liam and you got Wayne Gretzky, who, him and Biz have they got a bromance now, which is kind of an offshoot of all this too. And, Rick Tocchet, I just think the game is at such a level right now, Paul, that, we just got Colorado and Tampa, which was the matchup we all kind of wanted. Ideally, it would have gone 7 games, but we got a great 6-game final out of it. We had a draft that it was probably the most exciting, I guess, for the last few years. Montreal making the big trade and Gary Bettman kind of being a ham and egger and having some fun with it. And then the free agency, man, sometimes it's a big dud. And we got a monster day the other day. Johnny Gaudreau going to Columbus. I mean, talk about high drama. So we've had the season and then we had the draft. It's like everything has just been getting bigger and bigger. And it just makes me more excited for next season. Because, yeah, hockey fans can be a little exclusionary sometimes and, argue about this sport and, online. And it's like, just let everybody enjoy it, man. Not everybody grew up with it. Not everybody knows every little rule. Excuse me. Well, not everybody knows everything about it. So I don't want to blow my nose on camera. I know how rude that is.
You're good. Just restart. You're fine.
There's so much like more potential for growth of the sport, and that's not our set goal for us. It's sort of like, okay, yeah, we do help bring in some viewers ideally. So yeah, we're trying to grow the game. I mean, our goal is to entertain, but yes, we want to grow the game and bring more viewers in. And the more the merrier, you know what I mean? And then the league makes more money, the teams make more money, everybody makes more money, the league gets bigger, and that's the goal here. I mean, you're in the biggest league in the world right now, so you know the drill,
Blow your nose, RA, you're good. We'll edit it out.
No, good. I got it. Yeah, I got it out.
All right, cool. So, no, I mean, there's so much to tackle there. First off, I'll say this. We had Kenny Albert on our podcast. And Kenny's honestly one of my favorite people of all time. If I know you guys have a ton of different people coming on and different masters of the game, Kenny's called a million hockey game. Is a great guest. You guys don't need any more guests at Chiclets, but he's a really great guest.
We have him. We got the potential guest list about a mile long. And Kenny, I met him down out in Edmonton, and we're gonna have him on at some point. We got
such a good guy, man. Like I met him in the hallway. He was calling our game against the Cardinals. And I knew him. I'm like, all right, I'm always go up and introduce yourself. Like, I don't care. Who cares? Like, I had regret. Like one time I'm like, I will never do that again. Kenny,
Exactly.
big fan of your work. I play for the Panthers. It's a pleasure to meet you. Boom. We talked for 30 minutes in the hallway, gave me his personal cell phone, whatever you need. Just freaking pro. Came on the podcast. I just, are there some of those, like we talked about this before, like when you have like 10 things prepared. I asked 2 questions. He talked for an hour. It was a great episode.
When you get guys who can talk, like, I mean, when we interviewed Gretzky, man, he made it so easy. Like, because Gretzky, I mean, he's done it a million times, Gretzky, with interviews, but it was like, he made it easy. He would just like have a story tuned up, or would, like you say, ask him a question and he'd give you a 5, 6, 7 minute answer. And to go back what you just said to Kenny about going up to him, and I always say that whether it's sending a tweet to somebody, if you like somebody or something they do for a living, always tell them, and don't be, because I know it can be awkward, like, oh, don't be a fanboy. Well, it's okay to be a fanboy, a fangirl. It's like,
it's normal life. This is what life is. Like,
exactly.
I tell the young kids, stop watching social media and thinking that's awkward. That's normal to introduce yourself and say, I'm a fan of your work.
Yeah, or even if it is on social media, like to, so I'm in a position where people like reach out to me, and it's a blessing.
That's how we met. That's how we met.
Yeah, exactly. I'd say, hey, like, I like what you do, man. And it's like, that's like, not everybody gets to hear that about their job. So when you can hear it from anybody, it's a real compliment. And then, yeah, it's just like, cause I do, I've been doing it for years on Twitter, just reach out to someone. Hey, like, I love this movie you're in. I like the show you're in. And it can start a conversation. It could get ignored, but I think it's always never be shy about telling somebody you appreciate what they do, whatever there is they do.
We'll get back to Wayne Gretzky in a second here, but you brought up your acting career. You are a thespian. You were in The Town, which is a fantastic movie and one of my favorite movies of all time, a great Boston movie.
Yes.
And you were just in Shawzi. Talk about Shawzi. Give us the sales pitch and fill our listeners in on what it's all about.
Shawzi, man, what a fun adventure that was. If you're familiar with the show Letterkenny on Hulu, I got it's one of the few times I pronounce my R when I say Letterkenny. It's a show, a Canadian show, wildly successful, went to Hulu, became sort of a cult classic. It's written, directed, produced, created by Jared Keeso, brilliant guy, awesome fella. And he did a spinoff called Shawzi on one of the players from Letterkenny. And I think a lot of people were expecting, it to be a different type of character, because, when you see him on Letterkenny, you don't even see him actually. You just hear him and you see the back of him, that he was going to be this sort of profane goofball, whatever. And then Shawzi, he made the show about this one guy, and it was sort of this whole new world. So you don't have to have seen a second of Letterkenny. If you watch it, great, but you don't have to see Letterkenny to know anything about Shawzi. You can just dive in. And he created this world of Shawzi where, like, this guy who's, he's somewhat of a meathead and summary guy, but he gave this character such like an emotional depth and a background where you could, like, okay, at the beginning of the show, you're like, oh, Shawzi, this guy's a donkey. And by the end of the show, you understand the guy, and you understand, like, why he's the way he is. And that's because of the writing that Jared Keeso did with this guy. He's basically a hockey player in a senior league in Ontario, and the team's about to fold. There's, like, kind of elements of major league on there. That, the team owner threatening to close the team down. I know, kind of rambling a bit here. It's basically about a minor league hockey player up in Canada and all the exploits of what's going on in his life. It's a very Canadian show, but you don't need to be from Canada to appreciate it. It's the very first, I would say, hockey sitcom. I know I said that, people criticize me. I know Comedy Central had that Benchwarmers a few years ago. It kind of came and went. A few people saw it. It was nothing like Shawzi. Like Jared Reynolds got real hockey players, turn them into actors, because that's a lot easier than getting actors and trying to make them hockey players. And the results were great, man. The show is legit funny, and obviously I'm in it, so I'm going to praise it, but I'm not just saying it because I'm in it. It's genuinely funny. You can check it out on Hulu. 6 episodes in the first season, and the half-hour episodes you can binge the season in a couple hours. And I think maybe 1 or 2 people who've, like, replied that it wasn't for them, and thousands of replies who people love it. It's just a genuinely funny, hilarious, heartwarming show. I don't think that people would be disappointed. And yeah, I had a couple scenes in it as well.
What was your role in it, RA?
My role was Brian McGonigal as RA. So I was playing myself, but I dialed, like, I'm a Bruins fan, but I think I'm more of a reasonable Bruins fan. Like, I'm not like every fan base has its donkeys, Boston included. So I kind of just dialed it up to an 11 to steal a line from Spinal Tap. So I was kind of the donkey Bruins fan, but still kind of myself. So it's weird when you're acting, but you're playing yourself. But it's a great experience, man. Like, the night before, I had an 11-page scene, and I was like, I started shitting my pants a little bit because it's like, it's not, we're not making a David Fincher movie where you gotta every period or every space has to be like the perfect thing. Every word has to be, because that's where I get nervous. And then I ran lines at one of my co-stars, and listen to that. I feel like an idiot even saying that, but
you're good.
We sat in the hotel room and we ran lines, and it put me at such ease because it's like, oh, okay. And he said, listen, he's gonna tell you to just make the line your own. Like, it just convey the same point of the line, but do it in your own words. I was like, oh, really? So I basically was kind of like writing my own jokes out, writing my own lines. And that, as a guy with a little bit of a writing background and a huge TV fan, that was a huge thrill to be able to like write my own stuff that I used and ended up getting used in the show. I mean, from that perspective, it was dynamite. So yeah. And then all the other thing too, I didn't know until the night before, like I mean, I could have read it a little closer, but it wasn't crystal clear that I was going to be in the first scene of the series. So like when the series starts, episode 1, scene 1, I'm in that first scene right away. So that kind of added another level of like, yeah. And you do it, you do the show, and we did a rehearsal. Then we did a couple takes. It was sort of like Clint Eastwood style, like no fussy, no dilly dally. We just kind of got through it. And then afterwards, Jared came over and gave me a big bear hug and said, "Man, you crushed it. You exceeded my expectations." And I says, "That's it. I nailed it. Like the one guy I needed to satisfy, loved it. And whatever the internet has to say, bring it on, because I don't think I gave it the show. He loved it, and that's the only guy I needed to satisfy." So,
are they coming back with season 2?
Oh yeah, yep, season 2. I
Are
don't
you in
know.
it?
It's been officially announced. I would imagine I will be in season 2. Whenever it gets made, you can look for me in season 2. It's nothing official, but I'm pretty sure I'll be in it.
I am holding off for training camp. I stockpile 1 or 2 shows for training camp that are happy-go-lucky, that are get me away from things. I think I'm going to rewatch Sopranos. Not so happy-go-lucky, but I think I have to. Obviously, our man Paulie Walnuts passed away, sadly, and Shawzi. Talk about Paulie Walnuts, man. You talked about him last week on the episode. A lot of them, American kind of quote-unquote gangster icons passed away. You talked about on the episode, but Paulie Walnuts is the one I know the best, and probably I think everybody knows the best.
Yeah, I refer to him as one of the most vital characters on that show. And when you kind of pause and think about it, obviously Tony's the big one, but I mean, Paulie Walnuts is, I would say, the second most popular character on that show. Like, I think he was a gangster in real life earlier. He did time for armed robbery, and he was a stick-up guy, got arrested a bunch, and so he was almost like sort of method acting. 30 years before he needed to do all that stuff, he sort of had that background. So I think he had a natural inclination to that world. But then just the way the subtle things he would do with the faces, or the way he did his fingers, he was perfect for that role. And it was 79 years old, and I think he had that dementia. I think he had kind of faded a little bit the last couple of years. And to mention, you mentioned the day before that, James Caan played Sonny Corleone, and a few weeks before that, Ray Liotta played Henry Hill. And it's just like I said on Chiclets last week, the idea that the 3 of the most vital characters. I mean, you have the American pop culture mob history. It's Goodfellas, The Godfather, and The Sopranos. I mean, on the Italian spectrum, obviously you get some Irish gangster stuff and some Jewish gangster movies and whatever. But on the Italian spectrum, that's the holy trinity right there. And to have 3 main characters from those 3 all go in such a short period of time, it was sad. And it was just a weird coincidence too, that from this sort of milieu, this sort of world that these guys went, man. It was terribly sad. And James Caan, I mean, absolute legend too. We can't talk about Paulie Walnuts and not talk about Sonny Corleone. And he was, he had a hell of a life too. 82 years old. And he also made a bunch of other movies, James Caan. I mean, I talk about it all the time. The movie Thief that Michael Mann directed. Michael Mann, terrific director. He directed Heat, Collateral. God, I sit and name 15 other movies. Miami Vice. Ali, tremendous director. That was the first movie he ever directed in Chicago. And James Caan. And it's a movie. Sometimes people, I think modern audiences don't have as much patience. I don't think I'm not picking on young guys, but people have ADD now. They just don't watch things like they used to. I sit back and movies don't breathe anymore. That's the word I use. Like a movie like Thief, it's the open in 9 minutes. I think there's 2 words in it, and it's him cracking a safe and then driving off. And it's like an artistic quality to that. Some people might shut it off 3 minutes in and this is boring, but it's then maybe it's movie's just not for you. You know what I mean? I still love the old 70s and 80s movies like that. But yeah, R.I.P. Paulie Walnuts, Tony Sirico, just a guy who was acting bit parts for 20, 30 years. He never had that big break. And then, you never know when life is going to give you the gift that you're going to give back to everybody. And everybody knows him as that. And the other thing too, are you a big Godfather fan?
I am, but I'm not as dialed in as I need to be, probably because of work and whatever travel. I've seen it, but I need to watch it like 5 times. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Oh yeah, you gotta watch it. Like you mentioned, our Sopranos rewatch. When you watch something,
I've seen Sopranos probably 6 times.
Okay, and I bet each time you do, you find something new about it. Like it's like something like The Wire, because when you watch it the first time, you're watching on the sort of macro level, like all right, the general sense of what's going on. So then the third or fourth time, you know all that. So now you're sort of watching the background, the little subtle clues you're picking up. Well, going back to Paulie Walnuts, I didn't know this. He's actually not in the credits, but his first speaking role, he's one of the Rosado brothers in The Godfather Part 2, which because I always knew Danny Aiello was one of them, and you don't even recognize him, and because he says, "Oh, there's a cop." That was his first line ever, like in any movie. And I said, "How did I not know that?" And I read an old article when Tony Sirico died, and it was like, "Oh, he was one of the Rosado brothers in The Godfather Part 2." And I said, "Geez, he's one of these other guys who." There's a handful of them who are either in the Goodfellas and the Godfather, and so like that to be in all three of them, which in that world is a pretty crazy thing. So yeah, R.I.P. to a couple of classic mobsters lately.
Couple OGs. There's some really good stuff. Okay, so there's a lot to talk about here, and I've really want to ask you because I know how it means to you. You're a hockey fan, you're a hockey lifer, and you got to interview Wayne Gretzky. Pretty cool relationship, pretty cool interview. Talk to us about that.
The Gretzky thing. Yeah, it's funny. Everyone's like, "Oh, when you get him," then Biz started working him, and they started developing a relationship. And I had met his sons a couple of years ago at the All-Star game in St. Louis, and I was with Trevor, his son, out in Vegas during the Chiclets Cup, and I think he brought up like, "Oh, when you should get the old man on." What's funny is they don't call him Dad, they call him Gretz, which is kind of funny.
That is great.
Yeah, Gretz. Like you should. I'm like, "Are you shitting me?" Like, yeah, like fuck yeah, like let's do it. He's like, "Yeah, just come down to Atlanta sometime." And I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." So we kind of got the ball rolling there with Gretzky. And excuse me one sec, Call. I gotta put my air conditioner. I'm sweating my ass off in, and I'm in a closed room. Can I get?
You're good, bud. Take your time.
Sorry, pal. My old lady went out, didn't put the AC on for me. Okay,
No,
so
go back. Talk about just your interview with Gretzky.
Yeah, so Gretzky, yeah, we went down to Atlanta. Biz, that's where they do the TNT stuff. That's why it was in Atlanta. And yeah, you try to just go through them. I don't say go through the motion, but I try not to get overexcited. I mean, it's Wayne Gretzky, but you also want to prepare like you always do. I try to prepare the same way, and that's what I did. I mean, I prepared way more than probably usual because it's like, how do you prepare for an hour interview with Wayne Gretzky? It's almost impossible to talk about his career in an hour. So you kind of sort of try to segment it a little bit. But a lot of people ask me, "Oh, were you nervous? Were you nervous?" And I'm like, you know what? I wasn't. I mean, there've been maybe 1 or 2 times I might get the heartbeat gets up a little, like, when we had Cam Neely, he's my favorite player ever. And he's not known for doing interviews. He's not particularly media friendly. And so when we had Neely, that was like, I was probably more excited about that just because, it's your personal favorite player and he's, kind of going out of his way to come see. And, with Gretzky, it was like, this is awesome. I love it. But I didn't sort of get that nervousness, which I think was good because I think I was just kind of in the moment. And like I said, he come in and him and Biz have, a repartee, they're pals at this point. And he just made it easy. Like he just, like you would ask him a question and, because I'm sure he said everything 10 times already because he's Wayne Gretzky. He's in his 60s. He's had 9 million interviews. But so you're trying to maybe find something that either he hasn't said or maybe he said it so long ago that nobody, of our generation has heard it before. And I think we did a good job of that. I was really proud of how the interview went. Again, Wayne made it really easy for us with long answers and, having the fun personality he has. But, like I brought up the documentary, the 30 for 30, that Peter Berg made, King's Ransom. And I said, like, that was the first time, to my knowledge, that Gretzky really acknowledged having a role in his getting traded. I mean, he was more or less pulling the strings for it, because I think everyone had this, Wayne got traded, and he was, shucks, I got traded. And, I think that was sort of the perception, like that he had nothing to do with it. And no, he was underpaid, and he very much had something to do with it. But the whole thing about the Detroit Red Wings, I had no idea about that. I never read it. I didn't hear it. So when he said, my dad told me, you don't want to go, that was, everyone thought, he went to LA because his wife was an actress and blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, like, she didn't really do much acting after that. She basically, like, they made a family and they had their kids. So when he come out and told the story about, Detroit, I was kind of like, oh my God, I don't know if it was a scoop. I'm sure, like, he probably told it before, but our audience hadn't heard it. So to get new stuff, what was new to us out of Gretzky, that was huge, man. There was a couple other things he told too, like just stories of the game where, again, if he mentioned them before, they were new to us. So yeah, we got I think close to an hour out of him, and even I thought we could have kept going for more, because sometimes if a guy, you might have a set time with a guy, and it's like we'll go over. But I think Wayne, we probably could have did an hour and a half on him, but we didn't want to be discourteous and keep him longer than we said we were going to. But Biz was able to get, like, hey, if we're doing this next year, we'll do another interview next year, which is a perfect play by him. So ideally, this will be a yearly thing with Wayne Gretzky, as long as they're on TNT.
Yeah, I mean, that would be a heck of a person to have it be yearly with. And honestly, it's not even a big deal, because just like you are with having Coop on now, because you have that personal relationship with Coop. It's just something like, hey, he just wants to be treated like one of the guys, right? Like Tackett always talks about, when I hear when Tackett is like, yeah, we just go to happy hour and have apps. We just do stuff like that. Like, he's just one of the guys. So he's going to want to pop on.
That's the thing too, is like, I'm not old. I'm old now. I'm an old guy basically, and to be working on this world and the internet and podcast and all that. So you get older, and not that you're jaded or whatever, but it takes maybe different things to get your heartbeat getting up as if you were 25 or 30. And I think that's something to forget. I mean, you're a pro athlete. Is like you're just people. You're just regular guys and gals, and you happen to have a very, very unique job that only specific number of people on the planet can do this job. But at the end of the day, you're just a person. And it's not to minimize anybody. It's just like, I think we kind of put people on pedestals, and it's like, no, they're just regular guys. A lot of these guys, and like Gretzky, he's just a regular dude. Like afterwards, we sat down in the hotel bar and had a bite to eat, and then until I scared him off with one of my takes. Well, that was a version of what went down, and I like to play along, but I didn't really scare him along. I think he was making his way anyways. I gave him a Wayne Gretzky type setup to segue out of there with asking him a question, but he was not pissed off. And in fact, his son was like, dude, he loves getting his balls busted, which I wasn't even busting his balls. It was I think it was a very earnest question I asked him. And of course, Adam Oates, I'll bring it up here. Adam Oates, who, by the way, for years on the show, I frequently said I would put Adam Oates on the same level as a passer as Wayne Gretzky. I'd said it numerous times, and whether my co-host challenged me on it or not, it was like, okay, shrug shoulders. Nobody made a big point to call me a dickhead over it, and because I didn't see Wayne Gretzky. That's the other thing about Gretzky is a dirty little secret is we didn't really see him an awful lot in the United States back in the 80s, because the playoffs were the only time. Like, you didn't see Edmonton Oilers hockey, like, unless you had one of those big giant like ET satellite dishes in your backyard. Like, you didn't see the Edmonton Oilers on TV until playoffs, or if they were making their annual visit to your town. So I didn't see him a ton. I mean, you saw the highlights. I saw Adam Oates a ton. I mean, he played here in Boston, and I followed his career a little more. And I genuinely think he's one of the best passes ever. And we were talking, me and Wayne, we were sitting there, and, it was a small, intimate dinner that we were conversing. And the guy loves talking hockey. Like, it wasn't like I was bugging him and like, tell me more. Like, we were legit having an hour conversation, and he loves talking hockey and picking his brain. And then we kind of circled down to that point. And I just said, I don't know if I said, was he a better passer than you, or you a better passer? I mean, it wasn't disrespectful in any way. It was like conversational. And he was at the ass end of his tequila soda there. And I gave him like he was leaving anyway. So it was situational way. I mean, it was bad. And he saw a perfect opportunity to go and went over to talk. He's like, this kid just asked me if Adam Oates is a better passer than me. I got to get out of here. And I felt like so cheap But like I'm like, but I gotta stick to my guns here. I'm not gonna like get up and walk away. And like, of course they put the camera on me. And I said, hey, same thing I've been saying for years. I put them on the same thing, and nobody gave a shit now. And now I say it in front of Wayne Gretzky, and all of a sudden everybody's in a tizzy over it. So we kind of had some fun with it. But no, he was a cool shit, and I actually got to hang out with him a little bit more when we were in Edmonton. For the Western Conference Finals, and we went to the Edmonton Oil Kings game. We got to take in a junior game, which was awesome. I'd never been to a junior game, and Gretz wanted to go by and talk to the team before, so we basically sat in the owner's box. Daryl Cates, the owner of the Edmonton, he said, "Oh, here you go. Here's my box right at center ice." So Gretzky decided he wanted to go to the game, and now there's 15 people going to the Oil Kings game because not that he has an entourage, but he's Gretzky, so it's kind of like there's a ripple effect from what he wants to do, and everyone else is gonna kind of change their plans or do what he's doing. And yeah, we got to hang out a bit, and he gave us a tour of like the Hall of Fame room in Edmonton and told some stories. And it's these kind of fly on the wall moments that I get to do now, and that I really appreciate that stuff that you might not see on camera, although there might have been a snippet online, but it's just stuff like that. That's where I I treasure that type of stuff. It's off the record and just having these private moments. And like that day, for example, like Gretzky was he had been in the building. He was saying hi to everybody, and Paul Coffey was there. Like, and I didn't know Paul, hadn't met Paul Coffey, didn't know him from a hole in the wall. And he's like, oh, this guy, he's got to friggin' say hi to everybody, like kind of teasing Gretzky, because not most people aren't teasing Wayne Gretzky. And he pulls me in a room, and I'm sitting there, and he's like, oh, what's your name? Tell me about yourself. And I'm like, now I'm sitting in a room with Hall of Fame defenseman Paul Coffey, just shooting the shit about life in general and having a chat. And
the nice thing is you can relate to things now because you've moved up in the hockey world where you could say, well, I know John Cooper, we could have a legit conversation with somebody. Like you met someone from Charlestown where we know all these same people. Well, now you're like in that upper echelon.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
It is weird. I don't think he's like I don't know how familiar he is with even podcasting the show, whatever, but
you have mutual friends.
Well, some guys, call, they'll sit down and, hey, how you doing? And everybody's always polite. I mean, I would say in 6 years of doing this, there's only been, and I'm not going to name one guy who kind of made me like, I think this guy's trying to put me in my spot here a little because there was a bunch of other, and it was like I wasn't crying my beer, but because it doesn't happen. So when it happens, it's noteworthy. Okay, this guy, I get a sense he's kind of being a dick here. That's probably the one time I only ever felt like that. Some guys are cordial and polite. A lot of guys don't sit there and say, hey, well, tell me your story. Tell me about yourself. Like, and that, Paul Coffey did, and that's indicative of the type of guy he was. That he sat there and talked to me for 20 minutes, and he had just met me. So he was a great fellow, and we haven't recorded anything with him yet, but I think I might have landed for a future interview while we were there as well. So see what happens there.
RA's wheeling and dealing, man. RA's wheeling and dealing. I absolutely love it. Let's transition to some free agency stuff. We have to touch on the Flyers because we have a large group from Philly. Obviously, they made some minor cap adjustments to try to bring in Johnny Gaudreau, but the team's in limbo, right? They're just in absolute limbo. They have the Stallworth goaltender, which was always the issue in Philly. They don't really have any future prospects. They don't really have any future picks. They spent like $25 million on like 5 different defensemen that are all like third and second line guys. Like they're good, but are they great? Provorov is not turned into the number one guy that everyone thought he would be. Like there's a lot of different things. They took Nolan Patrick, and then 2 picks later, Cale Makar went, right? So there's a lot of really tough days in Philly. I love the Torch hiring. Everybody talks about that. And if you listen to your podcast, you listen to Missing Curfew, you listen to like players, they love Torch. A couple guys are going to tweet out like Dubinsky and say, good luck for Philly. Yeah. But at the end of the day, like that's fine. That's great. That's what we need. Honestly, probably need more of that. It's good for Chiclets. You guys will love it. But at the end of the day, like Philly's in no man's land. I hate to say it. A part of me was like, listen, the ship's burning, so might as well just spend all your money on Gaudreau and just pray to God that it all works out. And I said, if you get Gaudreau, maybe you get Giroux to come back for nothing. But that's the only way he's going to save everything. Obviously, Giroux to Ottawa, good for him going back to his hometown. But yeah, tough times in Philly, man. Not good.
Yeah, I the name that comes up all the time when talking to Philly fans. And by the way, I'm not saying this because I'm talking to you. Love Philly fans. I know they have a reputation that precedes them, and it doesn't match up with the experiences. When we go to Philly, the fans are awesome. The Dynamite tours always have a ball there, so I do genuinely feel bad.
You had a ball, right? You were doing karaoke in McGillen's.
Oh yeah, that's right too. Yeah, Little Dead Flowers, not one you hear all the time, but I'm pretty sure they pulled the plug on me too. But that's another story. But I feel bad for Flyers fans because you deserve better. Now you guys are loyal fans. Chuck Fletcher is the name that people are sick of this guy, and he doesn't seem to be up to the task right now. I don't know him. He might be a great guy, but I don't know if he's in over his head, and he's one of these sort of like guys who's been around the league so long that teams bring these guys on. But if you wanted to sign Johnny Gaudreau this summer as a Flyers GM, then you don't stop planning for that this summer and trade guys this summer. You plan this years back. Okay, he's going to be unrestricted in 2 years, 3 years. You map this out way back then, so you have the money ready for him. You don't try to like sign this one and sign that. And honestly, I don't think they were ever in on him at all. I don't even think that whatever moves they were making, like whatever the buy, like when they bought out Oscar Lindblom, I don't think that was like, let's try to get Gaudreau. Maybe in Fletcher's mind it was, but like, and then what's he gonna go there for? The team's a tire fire right now. I know they're bringing in Torts, and Torts will get them playing. I just don't. The roster construction right now, I mean, you look at what they've given up and what they've gotten in return, like all the picks they've gotten. Like, I know Ellis is hurt, and that's really not Fletcher's fault. I mean, he's a top 4 guy, and probably a top 2 guy on that team. But that's, you can't really fault the guy for signing a guy who ends up getting hurt. But it's a mess, man. It's the roster construction. It just what are they doing here? And like last year, I mean, people thought they were going to go to the playoffs last year, and they fell on their face. Now Carter Hart's a guy. I guess the first time we mentioned him, Carter Hart. Like, you look at it. You might look at his numbers last year, and and say, oh wow, he had a bad year. But I'm trying to peek at him while I'm talking to you, and it's like, no, he didn't have a bad year. The 316 goals against, 905 save percentage. He didn't have a bad year at all. That team in front of him was awful. And like when your team is that bad, then yeah, the goalie's going to give goals up. But like, I mean, I don't know how many games he stole, but he was not the problem last year. So you still have this young kid in net who, and I wouldn't even say not salvage his career. The kid, his career is still in front of him. He's 23 years old. He'll be 24 in next month. But I wonder though if Philly's that far away, because again, this is a team we're talking about playoffs last year. Awful season. Okay, well, are they that bad? And you look at the roster, and I mean, obviously Kevin Hayes, he's still got 4 years left. He's a friend of the program, a great player. But last year he was hurt, and he also was playing right after he lost his brother. And you think about, what if you have a 9 to 5 or a construction worker or a secretary, and you have a death in the family of a sibling, and how hard it is just to go to work, just to get out of bed and do your a job. Now, picture being on as a professional athlete, where you really have to get up and at this mental level, and you're dealing with such a traumatic thing, and then you get like, I felt so bad for Kevin last year, because like, how do you put that switch on and off? Colin, like you don't. Your older brother like dies suddenly in this horrible way, and you got to go to work and be a pro athlete, and it's like I thought of him frequently last year, and I really felt bad for him. And then to get hurt and just compounded everything, and it was just an awful season. I mean, if Kevin's healthy this year, you're gonna get a different version of Hazy this year. Yeah. And like I said, with Torts there, they're gonna be a different Flyers team. I just don't think. I don't know that they're built for. They're not a contender. But you know what? I don't think they're gonna be as bad as people think. Now that I'm looking, and like
I agree. I'm in the same boat with that, because their team is full of like a lot of second, third, and fourth line guys. Like, they just don't have the elite scorer, but Torts has done great with those type of teams. So if Sean Couturier is one of the best two-way centers in the league, right? Him and Patrice Bergeron over the years, the last really 5 years, it's been those two up for the Selke. So it should be interesting to see how that goes with Coots. Defensively, they signed a lot of if they could just be solid defensively in front of Carter Hart, I think they're good. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. And I think really, if you look at it, Pittsburgh, you lose Malkin. What's going on there? The Islanders didn't get Johnny Gaudreau. They have a great team, but they weren't great last year. The Capitals need to win right now. They signed Darcy Kemper, but it's not as really – it looks great on paper, but if you really look at, like, their division, right, what's going on in Boston, they're not in their division, but I'm talking about, like, now you're moving up to, like, Florida and Tampa and Toronto. It's like the Flyers may be okay in the Metro because it's not as loaded as I think it used to be.
That's a great point. That's a really good point, because and like I said, like last year, I think we all said, oh, they're going to the playoffs this year, and
Metro was loaded.
And they had two coaches last year. Who'd they fire before they brought in brain fire?
What's his name?
Elaine, yeah. And usually when you fire a guy, you bring in a new guy. There's some sort of a bump there. Mike Yeo got nothing out of him, whether that was on Mike Yeo or the team, whatever. But like I said, I'm looking at the roster. I mean, Tony D'Angelo, that's a good pickup for them. I mean,
I don't like that one. I think people rag him. He had 2 great years. He's good.
yeah, people. Well, I mean, I think that the baggage he has. I think people rag on from that. And hey, if that's you don't like him for that, that's people's prerogative. I understand it. Maybe you don't. But I think he also a lot of his stuff is from his past. Like they go back to his junior stuff, and he paid it. He paid the fiddler for that stuff. I mean, he was it was what's he 28? I mean, it was probably 10, 12 years ago, and he screwed up. And I know the political stuff with the Twitter, like other people like got on him for that. And again, if that's your issue with him, that's fine. But as a hockey player, the teammates love the guy. Like he's if anything, maybe too emotional, which, okay, that's something you can harness, but you'd rather have a guy too emotional than
people love him in Philly. And he's from Philly. He's got a place on the Jersey Shore.
He's a huge Philly guy. Yeah.
I like it.
I like last year in Carolina. I mean, when, the Rangers got sick of him, like, get out of here. You're just too much. You're a pain in the ass. You're fighting teammates. And, I think that might've been a humbling lesson for him. Like, okay, like, I gotta start doing things a little different here. And then now you're going from making $4.5 million, you'll lose your job, and you're making $1 million in Carolina, and you kind of had to rewrite his career there a little bit. And he played his game, and he earned himself a 2-year, $10 million deal in Philly. And yeah, he's an impactful player. Yeah, Philly. Now that
get healthy too.
I don't think they're going to be nearly as bad. I don't want to say bad. I don't think they're going to be what people think they are. I think they might surprise a few people.
And I think it's a great point, Ara. I think that's what people upsets people, and we'll wrap up here. I got a couple more questions for you, and we'll wrap.
Yeah.
I think that's what upsets people is because direction. It's like, okay, you sign a lot of solid players. Well, if you're trying to tank to be in the sweepstakes for these 2 or 3 of these really good players coming out next year, like, don't sign these guys.
Yeah,
they're not tanking. So, okay, they're the loser of free agency. ESPN had them as a loser. I think they're the loser of free agency just because of what's expected in Philly. This is in Arizona, and Arizona had success too, but this is Philly. Like, they're a great hockey organization, and it's changed. So who's the winner? For me, it's Carolina. I like what they did with Burns. I like the Pacioretty trade. They already have a good team. Who's your winner in free agency?
I'm just checking my phone, not to be rude, but Nazem Kadri still hasn't gone anywhere. Has he? Unless I
would love him to come to Philly, but we can't afford him.
No, he's not going to Philly. No. Yeah, no, Kadri. I mean, I'm just checking. He hasn't gone anywhere. You know what? The Columbus Blue Jackets, man, they got Johnny friggin' Gaudreau. Like, I know they didn't do anything else, but this team added an MVP caliber player, and everyone's like, "Oh, well, Columbus, what the hell is he going there for?" He doesn't like. Everyone has their theories on why he's gone there, and I check Chiclets out next week. Maybe we'll get a little more information.
Yeah.
Not official yet. We're gonna hopefully get him for next show, but this guy's a dynamic player. He changes that team completely. And Columbus is a team I like them. There's something about that team. I know they're kind of the scrappy underdog because the knock on them is who goes there. No, they can't get free agents. That's always been the knock. And it's not about Columbus, the city. People rave about it. Everyone who plays there loves going there. And no, it's not New York. It's not Chicago. It's not Miami. But you know what? It's not Winnipeg. It's not Edmonton either. Not to shit on those towns, but they're cold, wintry towns. And Columbus is a nice American city. I think maybe a little bit of a hidden gem in some regards. And now they're adding this player, and you look at their roster, man, and they got some pretty good pieces there. And last year, they played an entertaining style of hockey. It wasn't necessarily winning all the time, but you bring in Gaudreau, man, and they already got former flyer Jakey Voracek. He's there. He's only 32. He's
hysterical, man. He was great on Chiclets.
Oh my God! I was even before and after the interview we had with him. Obviously, a lot of stuff we couldn't use on the air. Holy shit! He was one of those guys. I need to party with this guy. Absolute savage, Jake Voracek.
Florida.
And a loving thing.
Well, let's say this. Those days of his early Flyers years with young Giroux, Mike Richards, Lupul, Carter, those teams, Upshaw.
Oh my! I can't imagine. I know when I was 19, 20, and I was a donkey, and I was certainly not a rich hockey player. I can't imagine what those
they
guys
won a Stanley Cup in 12. That's where the Patrick Kane goal snuck in. I mean, so
2010, man. Yeah, that was
10.
I actually was at. It's funny. I was at games 1 and 2 in Chicago of that Stanley Cup. Jimmy Vesey, who just played for New Jersey. He's a free agent now. His dad. I'm pals with his dad, and he's like, hey, you want to go to the Stanley? You want to go to Chicago for the Cup? I was like, yeah. Like, he's like, all right, I'll get the tickets. You take care of the hotel or the flight or whatever. I was like, sure. So we went out to games 1 and 2 of that. And Philly, man, they almost won that freaking series. That was the 6. That was a powerhouse Chicago team that if they got to game 7, man.
Flyers didn't have a goalie. They had 2 goalies. I think it was Michael Layton and Brian Boucher.
And exactly, they got there with those two, and Layton played out of his mind. It would have been a miracle if they won, and it would have been like legendary cup. But anyways, back to Columbus. Voracek, Gustav Nyquist, kid's a hell of a player. Bjorkstrand, he's really found his game the last couple of years. Roslovic, I know he had a bit of an off year last year. And then the defense, Zach Werenski, he's a top pair guy. Goodbranson, they just re-upped. This kid, Gavrikov. I mean, you look at the team, it's a solid roster. Merzlikins in net. I love that kid in net. We had him on the show a few years ago. Absolute character. I love getting the Euros on. There's a little something additional when we have them on. I think, I'm not too sure on their coach, Brad Larson. I know they just had him, I think last year was his first year. That's a team, man, that they were never really close to the playoffs last year, but adding a guy like Johnny Gaudreau, absolutely, like, you got to talk about them in the playoffs. If they can just kind of, round off the edges and get, clean up the team D a little bit. Columbus is a team, that could certainly be in the mix in that division. But as far as other free agents they're signing, I'm trying to think. To Ottawa Senators, man. I mean,
I like that. They got some good young players. Giroux, they dumped the Matt Murray deal. I mean, Giroux is like a good, sneaky leader too. People in Philly like, oh, he's not a leader because he didn't win a cup. Well, listen, he's not Ovi and he's not Crosby. Like, but he's right below them and on the superstar echelon. I think that's a huge pickup. I'm an Ottawa fan now because of G. I like what they did. I think it's a great point by you.
And I've been I hashtag pesky sends. Like I was all over them last year because I'll throw flyers on 100 to 1, 200 to 1, where they were last year. People are like, oh, you thought Ottawa was going to win the cup? Like, no, I didn't, you idiot. It's called taking a shot on a long shot. It's 100. I didn't really think they were going to win the Stanley Cup, but God forbid that they did, and I was going to cash in on it. Like, I'm a gambler. That's
a smart man. Just an idiot.
But yeah, they bring in, they signed Giroux, and then they trade for DeBrincat. I mean, this kid's one of the premier goal scorers in the league. 41 goals twice. He's but 23.
Their power play is going to be good.
They're going to be really good. I mean, Thomas Chabot on the back end, Zaitsev. They got some nice pieces there, and they still got the pipeline. I mean, they got tons of draft picks coming. They've really built for the future really well. What's his name? Pierre Dorian. He's done an unreal job getting this team to where they are. And I know that, the owner, Eugene Melnick, passed away. And, I word this gingerly, but, he might have been I don't say hindrance, but like that was the big controversy, I think, with Ottawa was the owner. You didn't know what was going to go on. And now that's really not like I said, it's an element that doesn't exist now. So I don't know who owns them or whatever, but it seems like the team can just function on its own now. You know what I mean? Like there's no stories about the owner and charity organizations and all this other stuff. It's just the team is just about the team. And Pierre Dorian's done a good job. And their coach, DJ Smith, probably one of the most underrated coaches in the league because he's in Ottawa. And the team hasn't been winning, but I watched that team a lot last year because, I'm a big Brady Tkachuk guy. Big Walt's an old friend of mine, his dad. So I love watching him and Matthew play. I love rooting for him. And watching Brady is just like watching Keith 30 years ago, like to a T, like same manner, the number, setting up in front of the net, taking the beat and giving the beat and chewing on the mouthpiece, hanging out of his mouth. It's such a funny thing to watch. Like, oh my God, this is just like watching Keith 30 years ago. So yeah, I'm an Ottawa.
The addition of Talbot.
Well, that was still running down the roster. Exactly. Now they got a goalie. I mean, Cam Talbot was an all-star last year. I mean, and I could see he was pissed off about what happened. He went fucking 13-0-3 in his last 16 games last season, and he doesn't get a fucking start in the playoffs till game 6 with the season on the line. And now you're bringing back Marc-Andre for 2 more, and that's not no diss on Marc-Andre, but like if you're Cam Talbot, you're like, what the fuck, dude? You know what I mean? He's been kind of grinding his whole career, and then I know his agent, Billy Guerin, had a little pissing contest there. And, like Billy's like, all right, man, like, careful what you wish for. But it's like, now I'm going to send you to Ottawa. But, now the guy's going to play 50 games a year, 60 games a year. And I don't know. I mean, Minnesota may go on to win the cup, may not. But I'll tell you, the Ottawa Senators is a markedly different team than they were a month ago.
No doubt about it. The great Rear Admiral giving us all the facts, all the good stories. Spittin Chiclets finest, #1 hockey show in the world, man. Congrats to you. Congrats to you guys. A great product, and always good having you on, man.
Thanks for letting me talk your ears off for a little bit, Colin. Much appreciated.
I had a ball, man. I love it.
All right, buddy. You take care.